And lastly, regarding reasons for adjourning into executive session. Matters that require the protection of contract, lease, or other negotiations. I went over a few of what the statute says, but I didn't go over what you need to say, President or Chairperson. When you go into executive session, you don't just say, oh, we're going to adjourn now into executive session. Okay, good night. Bye, owners. You're not allowed to be here. You have to state the general reason you're going into executive session. We're going to adjourn the meeting at this time to go into executive session to discuss legal, personnel, and/or delinquencies. If you wish to stick around in the event we may adjourn back into regular session, please do so. But right now, executive session is strictly for the board and any of our invited guests, such as their attorney or their managing agent. Be sure that you always, and remember, owner, non-board members, you're not entitled to be present in those executive sessions. Communication, fun topic, depending on what side of the microphone you're on. In my handout there, it says newsletters because that is our go-to, that is our safety blanket way of communicating with owners in our community. I consider it the old school way, which is still a good way to communicate, but there's so many evolving ways to communicate, additional conduits that you can use to communicate. Do any of you know of or use a smartphone application for your community? Great, so do I. There are different vendors out there that offer that service, especially if you have a large community where you need to disseminate information quickly. There is, of course, still information that you are required to send out via USPS. But after that, you can always use newsletters, a smartphone application where it sends instant text messages whenever there's something new that's going out. Use that conduit. Also, your association website. Before I did this presentation tonight, I had to check my association's websites to make sure I was practicing what I preach. Are any of you in here the webmaster for your website? Great. So webmaster, you're on there consistently to make sure that the association photos, meeting dates are all updated. You don't want to have outdated information on there because no one's going to go to those sites. I like to put updated photos of the entryway or any landscaping upgrades or all of the updated newsletters and meeting dates. Keep all of the information on there fresh and relevant. I'd say anything within the last 12 months is fresh and relevant. Anything before that, discuss it with the board. But you want to be able to make sure owners are visiting that site and it's being utilized to the fullest. And also a good old-fashioned email blast. Maybe you have something coming down the pipeline like I do. I have a mandatory paint. Any home that was closed 10 years or longer will be required to paint. If not, you will be fined and cited. That board, they will be doing everything they can to inform the ownership of this mandate that will be coming down the pipeline. They'll be using email blasts, their website, newsletter. I have some boards where they want to save money and send that type of information in their budget packet or their annual meeting packet. That can be good and bad. I like to keep the budget packet specific to the budget. Don't convolute it with other information. It's hard enough to get owners to read the budget information as it is. You throw a newsletter in there that's hiding, they might never see it. In your communications, use that as a tool to introduce yourselves. Put the information in there of your board member position, your name, but be careful if you're putting board contact info. Get explicit approval from your board members if you are going to advertise their email or contact phone numbers. Also, you want to make sure that these communication conduits include hot topics, something that's light and fluffy. You know, we talk about governance and violations and all this stuff, but you want to make this community somewhere where people want to live, somewhere where people want to buy into. Maybe put a volunteer corner in there or a movie night. I live in Mililani, and MTA, I look forward to getting their newsletters because it's so vibrant and they have great information on community events. Any MTA people in here? No? In the handout, I have a sample of a not-so-good newsletter. And I want to touch on some of these things because, unfortunately, in my experience, this is what I've seen some boards put out. And they meant well. They had good intentions. But they needed to improve upon a few things. For instance, just starting at the top, when you look at a man shouting in a cone, it looks like he's yelling at you. And it says, the board's voice. Well, we don't want that. It sounds, you're not including the rest of us. And it goes on to talk about the next board meeting date. It tells us it's on a Friday, it's at 6:30, but what time, AM, PM? It doesn't give us a venue, so it sounds like they don't want us there, us being the non-board member owner. And it states, owners are to limit their speech and not hold others hostage with long-winded soapbox speeches. Okay, maybe the samples I've experienced in my past didn't say exactly that, but that's what the owner read. That is what they saw in their mind when the board said, limit speeches to 2 minutes. And it says, design review meeting this Friday, which is the 15th. Applications not accepted after the 1st. That's not enough time to get applications in. And also, in bold caps, it says no pooping. Then it goes on to talk about, we meant your dog, we meant your pet. And great, they do have a little corner here about movie night, but they tell us to bring your own chairs and your own food, don't encroach on other spaces. So they just went and negated what they were trying to do. They came out with a positive, but the language they used just took away from the whole fun of it all. And while we know everyone speeds in the community and we want them to slow down, at the bottom here it says, slow the heck down, and about 20 exclamation points. I had a board president once write up a newsletter, didn't run it by the rest of the board, didn't run it by me, and sent it out via email blast, and it had very close language like this, and it really upset everyone. And it made my job more difficult, it made the rest of the board's job more difficult, because now they had to play damage control. The next sample in the handout is the example of good. This is a much better newsletter. It's short and sweet. For those of you that have more than one page, bless you. That takes a lot of work to format and get all the content in there. But you notice it starts off real nice, the Paradise News, because this is the Paradise Association. They talk about when the next board meeting will be. It gives you very specific date, time, and location information. And oh, look at that. It gives you a website if you want to obtain documents, because that's one of the issues we face here, right? You don't feel like you have access to documents. Well, go to the website. You can download all the governing docs, forms, applications. And look, they have a corner down here. Volunteer committee members for Neighborhood Security Watch and Welcoming Committee. Members will receive a free t-shirt. What a way to encourage a sense of community. Everybody in, maybe the color of your community is green and beige. Go out and get a few shirts made for $5 or $10 and foster a sense of community by starting that up with your Neighborhood Security Watch. I have an association now. They're going to be getting yellow shirts with bright green writing, has their association name, and on the back it says NSW, Neighborhood Security Watch. It also provides all of the emergency contacts. So when owners get your newsletter, it's, oh, okay, I wanted to see who I can contact about reserving the rec room, or I want to see who I can contact if I have a plumbing issue. Who's the association using? Or even just HECO or Board of Water Supply. I get a lot of phone calls, Kanani, when's bulk pickup? Put that in your corner. Third Wednesday of every month. If you have any further questions, put the website, www.opala.org. This is just such a different tone, right, when you compare the two. Another part of communicating as a board, because your job, board members, is to maintain governance, right? And that means enforcing your house rules. How many of you are consistent in house rule enforcement? Raise your hand, that's something to be proud of. Okay, the rest of you, not so consistent. So I'm talking to you. First and foremost, board, be the example of good. If you live in a high-rise, you shouldn't be treating your lanai like a storage unit. Clean it up. If you have plants, that's wonderful. Plants need water. But make sure they don't leak and seep into the unit below you. Because as a board member, that unit below you is thinking, oh, why does he or she get away with leaking into my unit? Because they're a board member? Or if you live in a single-family home or townhome community and you've got weeds in your yard, board member, what does that tell the rest of us? That you get away with it and you don't get penalized. But Kanani, non-board member, I got a letter the other week. This is just an example. But President Motooka has weeds in his yard. They assume he didn't get a letter. He could have. As the managing agent, we're not required to tell you whether he did or not. But my point is, be the example of good before you undertake any type of covenant enforcement activity. Make sure that your entire board is good. Clean your house first. Then make sure that you have a sound house rule booklet. It's updated and has the blessing of your association attorney. Have a clear fining policy. Yes, you should have a fining policy. I know some boards, they want to enforce the rules, but we don't need to fine them. You know, we want to be nice. It's okay to be nice, but you have to be direct and you have to encourage them to comply. One way to encourage them is to sanction fines. I had a board president once. When I drove by one week, I saw weeds. Here's the ground. I saw weeds growing maybe about 6 inches. I thought, you know what, I'll come back next week to see if it's still there. I came back the following week and it doubled. I sent him a letter. And I got a kick out of it, by the way, because I thought he was testing me. I thought he was checking to see if I was providing fair enforcement. I passed that test. As the managing agent or whomever is doing your covenants enforcement, they should be looking at each unit as a unit. There is no special privileges. No one should get any special or unfair treatment. That is one way to piss off your owners. That's one way to get them knocking on council member doors. And also be consistent. Don't tackle it one time and then let it go. You have to be consistent. So it starts by informing your owners. So clean your house first, right? Clean your lanai, clean your yard, be the example of good. Second is notify your owners in advance. Let them know this is coming down the pipeline. Hey, Miss Savio, we'll be coming down your road in 30 days to do house rule enforcement. Just want to give you a heads up. This is why you bought into this community, for the beautiful landscaping, the curb appeal. So we have to make sure that we enforce this. That's how you gain owner buy-in. Because some people are like, why? They think it's just, you're just violating them. No, we're being consistent, the whole neighborhood. Come to a board meeting because all those people that got love letters are showing up. Right? But if you inform them first, then at least you have that. Like, no, we sent notice out to all of you, let you know that this was coming down. We even told you, hey, if you need an updated copy of the house rules, let us know. We'll provide it to you at no cost to you. We'll charge it back to the association. On the next handout, I have a sample of a violation letter. I have two samples. The first is, of course, the not so good. And I will admit up front that this was therapeutic for me, putting this sample together of what a bad violation letter is like. And there is a reason why I talk about this in detail. So since you can't really read through that, I will read it to you. This is a first warning. Dear Happy Hollow, this is a first warning. You should have already known the rules since you lived here over 20 years. We told everyone that inspectors were coming, and yet you still remain in violation. Well, too bad. We inspected your unit sometime in March, and the first warning regards bus-up cars all over your bus-up yard. What to do? Clean up or be fined. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me. Remedy or else management. Pretty nasty, right? Not to mention, they have the wrong house on the violation letter. This house is in pristine condition. Every single grass is in place. Even the car is waxed and shiny. My point is, when you look at now the good letter, this is, the next sample in your handout is a sample of a good letter. Tells you this is a friendly reminder. Gives you the exact excerpt from your house rule. Gives you a picture and the date and timestamp of that photo. So even though in maybe most of our eyes, this is the perfect letter, the owner is still going to see this in their head.
Do we have some lights so we can actually read it?
You know what, afterward, come over and I'll show you, I printed up a full page one for you. Sorry about that. I'm going to wrap it up soon too, so we'll be moving on to another speaker. But lastly, committees. Board, you are not paid to do this job, or you shouldn't be. Use committees to help you. Find out who in your community has landscaping knowledge, finance knowledge, someone that can help with a paint project, maybe a contractor, maybe it's just a specific time frame. Put it out there in your newsletter, put it out there in your website. Give clear roles and responsibilities. Hey, we're looking for a landscape committee. We meet once a month. All we need you to do is check email, or all we need you to do is show up once a month prior to the board meeting so we can talk about our recommendations to the board. For those of you non-board members in here who show up to meetings with complaints, show up to those board meetings with solutions. It'll help everyone involved. It'll stop making you angry. It'll stop making the board not want to be on the board anymore. It's hard enough to find volunteers out there. Be the solution, be the example of good, like your board members have to be. So for you non-board members, put some time into volunteering on a committee of your choice, or go to your board and say, hey, I have some background in, I'm a retired school teacher. Do you need help with the house rule updating? I'd love to help you with that. Board member, sure, we'd love to have you part of that committee. And at that next board meeting, when it's time for a committee report, let that non-board member committee person read the report. Owners are sick of hearing from me. They're sick of hearing your voice, board members. Let them hear from that homeowner. And that will help foster a sense of community. Few takeaways. Don't forget to announce the reason for going into executive session. Very important. You don't want owners to think you're meeting in secret, you're planning deals with the mob. Remember that you as a board member, you're personnel too. Use newsletters, smartphone apps, website, email blasts. These are all additional conduits. Use it. Be the example of good. It's so simple, right? But it's not. It's hard sometimes. You're busy. You don't have time to weed your yard. But be the example of good. Keep in mind that you have to have timely responses. Respond to your owners. Because if not, you're going to allow them to just fester all of this negative assumption in their head. And encourage your owners to join committees. This might be a good way to get their feet wet, because we know we don't have a bunch of people jumping up and down, I want to be on the board. This might be a good way to get their feet wet, and maybe they will serve for the board one day. Baby steps. Before I leave you this morning, I want you to know it's pretty close to impossible to please everyone. But with good faith effort, you will please most everyone. Thank you.